So this is the long-term trends of Point Pleasant Park forest ecology after Hurricane Juan. So Hurricane Juan was a Category 2 hurricane that devastated Atlantic Canada on September 29, 2003. The hurricane formed in the southeast of Bermuda and got up to 145-kilometer-hour wind speeds. Juan created around $100 million worth of damages, and within all the chaos, the hurricane also took out 70% of the trees that were in Point Pleasant Park. Point Pleasant Park is a large forested municipal park that sits at the tip in the south of Halifax and is enjoyed by hikers, dog walkers, and many more people. Today, we are here to discuss the aftermath of Hurricane Juan, touching on topics such as how has the overall forest community changed over time, how has the density of dominant species changed after Juan, how has the chosen community metric changed over time, and also predictions towards what we think will occur once Point Pleasant moves towards its community climax. So Halifax is known as Kijeptuk to the Mi'kmaq community and holds an incredible cultural significance. Point Pleasant Park is recognized by the Mi'kmaq Nation as Amnakati, which translates to spirit place, which holds a lot of spiritual significance. This land was the place where the Mi'kmaq would come together for 7 days after the first full moon during the frog croaking month, which occurred in the springtime. Given the invaluable resources and spiritual significance of Point Pleasant Park, the Mi'kmaq community fiercely protected these lands as they recognized how vital they were for protection and spiritual enlightenment. And then these are all of our hypotheses for each of our questions that we will be answering later on in the presentation.
So to begin this study, there were 6 study sites chosen that were measured 20 meters by 20 meters, and they were chosen as areas that were deemed to have the highest impact on forest structure from the hurricane. These sites acted as replicates of the data that were collected from 2004 until 2023. Due to the extenuating circumstances where data collection was not possible, the years 2005, 2007, 2016, and 2020 were excluded from the study. Sorry. There were 2 main measurements utilized within the study: tree density, which was taken as a measurement per species per 400 meters squared, and tree size, in which DBH, diameter at breast height, was utilized as a method to estimate the amount of wood per site using a 30-meter retractable measuring tape. This method was used as it allowed for comparison of the results to logging industry data, since DBH is a standardized measurement of the logging industry at a height of 4.5 feet. The species of tree were determined using the Canadian Field Naturalist by Rowland and Smith 1963 and the identification of Nova Scotia woody plants in winter by Donnelly 1960. Linear regression was utilized as the statistical data analysis, as it helps to identify and quantify trends and relationships between variables over time, while allowing for hypotheses to be deemed significant or not. If a dataset is deemed to have a significant linear relationship, it can also be utilized as a predictive method for the relationship between the variables. Within the study, there were 3 main questions posed. 1, how has the overall forest community changed over time and why? What can you predict will happen to the overall community as the forest moves towards its climax community and why? 2, how has the density of the dominant species in 2004 as well as the dominant species in 2023 changed over time? How can you predict what will happen to the dominant species as the forest moves towards its climax community? And 3rd, how has the chosen community metric changed over time? What can you predict will happen to the chosen community metric as the forest moves towards its climax community? This presentation aims to answer these questions based on the provided data and regression analyses to better understand the secondary succession of Point Pleasant Park. The changes in the overall forest community can be observed through trends depicted in total density, Shannon Diversity Index, and DBH. The total density of the 6 400-meter squared replicates demonstrated a significant increase from 2004 to 2023, and there was found to be a strong correlation between total density and the time after the hurricane. This increase shows that the regrowth of trees after the devastation posed by Hurricane Juan, where 70% of the trees in the park were destroyed. There are multiple ecological mechanisms that are possible contributors to the change in the density of trees over time, including soil composition, sunlight availability, and temperature. With regards to soil composition, it was noted that there was no significant changes observed from the intact and disturbed sites, and therefore it can be ruled out as a factor contributing to the changes within the total density. According to Burley et al. 2008, Point Pleasant Park has seen an increase in dominance of fast-growing pioneer species. Therefore, the increased density could be attributed to the presence of said fast-growing species. The Shannon Diversity Index has demonstrated a significant positive relationship from 2004 to 2023 with a strong correlation between the index and the time after the hurricane. Since this measurement is calculated by the number of species present in proportion to the species abundance and relative to the total abundance of all species in the community, the increase demonstrates that the forest community is increasing in an even manner of the diversity of species. Due to the loss of trees from the hurricane, the diversity of species plummeted as the only trees able to withstand the extreme weather were able to survive. During regrowth, the increase of the diversity of species could be attributed to the presence of native and non-native species within the study sites. According to Burley et al. 2008, majority of the non-native species that were found within the study sites had also been noted within the reference plots, meaning that these species were present before the storm and therefore contributed to the increasing diversity over the 2 decades. From the data taken from Point Pleasant Park, the DBH has demonstrated a significant decrease from 2004 to 2023 with a moderate correlation between DBH and time after the hurricane. From the data, we can see that DBH was significantly higher during the range from 2004 to 2008 until there was a decline where the measurement remained relatively stable until the latest data in 2023. This trend could be attributed to the large standing trees within the park that were able to withstand the extreme weather conditions while all the other trees were wiped out. Then in the following years, due to changes in the community and exposure, these trees likely did not survive, and therefore there were only smaller regrowth trees that contributed to the DBH. As the forest community reaches its climax community, I predict that the overall forest community will see a stabilization in both diversity and density, while a positive trend will be observed in DBH. I believe that the diversity will stabilize as there are only so many species that will grow within the conditions of the park. And while we are seeing an increase during the regrowth phase, this will only remain while the seeds that are within the soil grow. Similarly, the density will also stabilize during the climax community period, as the forest will only be able to maintain its equilibrium at a certain density to avoid competition for nutrients, sunlight, and space. In contrast, I believe that as the forest grows, the overall community will demonstrate an increase in DBH as the trees grow over time.
So prior to the devastating impact of Hurricane Juan, the red spruce and the red maple trees reigned supreme as the dominant species of Point Pleasant Park. Their dominance proved to be an asset during the regeneration process following the damages caused by the hurricane. Red spruce, known for its proficiency in regenerating amidst decaying wood, found the aftermath of Hurricane Juan to be the perfect environment for regeneration. Also, red spruce possesses the remarkable ability to germinate in low light conditions, which enables them to regenerate in inaccessible areas to other organisms. These adaptive advantages gives reason to why red spruce reigned dominant for so long and was able to regerminate efficiently after the catastrophic event. On the other hand, red maple exhibits 2 distinct methods of regeneration, one through seedlings and the other through clonal sprouting from stumps following a forest disturbance, just like this one. The dual approach to the regeneration gives red maple trees a competitive edge over other organisms after the hurricane, as they possess multiple ways to repopulate their community. Additionally, the soil, though affected, retained its fragility after the hurricane, which allowed these dominant species to continue their growth even in the face of these environmental challenges. So the process of natural regeneration is clearly depicted in Figure 1 and 2 above, which show a constant increase in tree densities in the years subsequent to the hurricane. Both the red spruce and red maple trees yielded p-values below 0.05, prompting the rejection of the null hypothesis and affirming a positive correlation between the densities of the dominant species and the time after Hurricane Juan. However, it is necessary to acknowledge that the strength of the relationship, as shown in our values above, appears to be weak. Thus, while there still exists a statistically significant correlation between densities and time following Hurricane Juan for both red spruce and red maple, it's necessary to note that the correlation is modest and showing that these densities do still in fact increase, but the rate of increase may be slow or inconsistent following the damages from Hurricane Juan. As Point Pleasant Park moves towards its climax community, I believe that the red spruce and red maple will continue to be dominant species among these other organisms. I believe this due to the resilient abilities that they have. Both red spruce and red maple possess abilities that allow them to continue to thrive even in the face of environmental challenges. The shade tolerance ability in red maples gives them an upper hand as they are well suited for almost all environments that surround them. And red spruce yields many different ways of germinating that allows them to reestablish their community efficiently after a catastrophic event.
So Pilu's evenness index is a measure of how species are evenly distributed in a community. Pilu's index has been steadily decreasing since Hurricane Juan in 2004. And there's been a significant negative relationship between 2004 and 2023, prompting us to reject the null hypothesis that there was no significant decrease in Pilu's index between 2004 and 2023. So Pilu's index is expected to further decrease over time as red spruce and red maple continue to dominate other species, which will drive down the species evenness in Point Pleasant Park. So for our conclusions, I have that Hurricane Juan had a huge immediate impact on the trees in Point Pleasant Park, destroying up to 70% of them. And our presentation looked to discover the impact Hurricane Juan had on two of the most common tree species from the immediate impact in 2004 up to last year in 2023. And it is clear that there is a significant increase in total density of both the red spruce and red maple trees between the immediate impact in 2004 and 2023. And this can be used to assume that Point Pleasant Park is in its intermediate species stage of secondary succession, as there is an increase in total density while also having a decrease in DBH. And being in an urban environment, it is possible that this could affect the succession due to reasons such as management practices and altered environment conditions.
For our acknowledgements, we would like to give thanks to Christine Beauchamp and her students for beginning this research and their efforts in collecting the data from Point Pleasant Park. We would also like to extend our thanks to Allison Schmidt and her contribution to the research and the preparation of the data, and Neve Murley for providing feedback during completion. Additionally, our peers who provided feedback are also recognized in their contributions to our project.